welcome back to this week's episode of Life in Private Staffing. Hope you're all well. Hope you've all had a good couple of weeks. This is going to be a meaty one today. I feel like we're going to have absolutely bags of stuff to talk about. So today on the show, we've got Latricia Friend, who is based over in New York, who has been working in the private sector for a really, really long time now. Really long time, and is now in a sort of position where she is a luxury lifestyle manager, but offers a service to both clients, ultra high net worth clients, and also to candidates who are working within the sector. So loads to talk about. So welcome to the show, Latricia. How are you?
Thank you so much, Philippa. It's great to be here.
No problem. Tell us a little bit about you then, and where you're based and what you're currently doing.
Yeah, so I'm based in New York City. I love it here. I've been other places, but I always keep coming back to home, right? And I've been in the industry, when you said a long time, I was like, yeah, it really has been quite some time, since 2007. And what I offer to clients as a luxury lifestyle manager is, so New York City is fabulous and wonderful, but most people don't live here. Most people of wealth don't live here full time, right? Great, but they don't. But as everyone knows, in private service, you can't have a property just kind of sits on its own. They're very complex. There's a lot of things that have to happen on a regular basis. So someone has to walk through, check everything out, make sure everything's working. And then when you're coming into town, you want all the goodies and everything that you want to experience the city in its entirety. But that means someone has to go out and shop and arrange for it to be delivered and receive the packages and have everything laid out for you when you arrive. So my start in 2007, it's been forever it seems, was started with one of the schools. I actually went to Starkey Institute of Household Management here in the States, based in Denver. And it was a fabulous experience. Was placed by them, they also do placement, for fabulous families. And when I returned to New York City, I was looking for something that fit me, really great families who kind of understand and accept having service. I think that's the hardest part for some families. They want service, but you have to be able to receive it, right? To get great service. And have lucked out to have really great clients that get it, understand it, appreciate it, and are welcoming to having staff take care of them, their belongings, their guests, and everything, all the minutiae in their lives, so that they can continue to be philanthropic and passionate about the things that excite them, right?
Yeah. And so when you first started, that 2007, were you doing what you're doing now, where you sort of act on a consultancy basis for numerous clients, or did you go into a permanent position off the bat?
So off the bat, I went to a permanent position, worked for 5 years for one family, glorious, lovely family, multiple properties. I was their household manager at their primary residence, and then worked with the villa manager in the Caribbean, the New York City household manager, the winter, residence, property manager, to make sure everything worked out. So, the missus changed her shampoo here, that had to filter down.
Yeah.
All places, right? Or if we decided we're going, okay, instead of 90% organic cleaning products, we're going to go to 98 to 100%. Well, here's what we like, here's what we're using. And if you can't find it, let me source it and push it to you, so that when they walk in, everything is what they expect to see.
Yeah.
And after 5 years there, I worked with another family that wasn't quite ready, right? You really have to be welcoming and ready to have someone come in to take care of all those little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So that you can do other things. And that family wasn't quite ready, almost, but wasn't quite. When you have a couple of housekeepers full time, and you have a chef that comes in most of the time, and you go, yeah, I need a household manager, but they just weren't quite ready. It's like, hey, I can deal with these packages that you want to have sent back. No, I'll take care of it on the weekend. Okay. Things like that. So you really have to be ready for it. And then when I came back to New York to take care of some family issues, I realized that I love the city. Why would I not want to be here?
Yeah.
Plenty of families and individuals who need assistance, I'll find a great family. It'll take a minute, but I'll find a great family. And what happened for me is that most of my colleagues actually were like, hey, I'm going to be in the Hamptons, but I need someone to receive a rug. We've got a great housekeeper, but it's a little more than just going, yeah, hey, put it on the floor, right?
Yeah.
Inspect the packaging, they have to roll it out, you have to, so he's like, can you do that for me? And I was like, of course I can. I need Wi-Fi though, I'm doing a job search.
Yeah.
And more of my colleagues were doing that. They're like, I just need someone to work on one project and, because I'm doing 16 other things. It's like, of course I can take care of that for you. Or my principal just bought, a double wide townhouse on the Upper East Side. There is no way for me to get it all done by myself in time. Will you assist me? Sure, why not? And then through some other connections, I was introduced to a family that needed someone to take care of their penthouse apartment, a pied-à-terre in New York. They're not here that often. And I've been working for them and a couple of other select clients ever since. So it's been really nice.
Yeah, you're so fortunate because it's quite unusual, I think, what you offer. In the UK, I haven't come across this very often. It's permanent or not at all, really. But I suppose in London, it's a bit different because a lot of the residents here are full-time residences. So it's slightly different. And so house managers are needed there full-time. But what a lovely balance for you to have, because it's not all your eggs aren't in one basket. You haven't got one family with everything going on. You've got the variety and the variety of working with, a few families, but on a regular basis. So it's a really great little balance you've got.
Yeah, it's a really nice balance because luckily, knock on wood, each family, once they arrive, are pretty self-sufficient, right? New York is great. They come, they want to go to the shows, they want to go to Fashion Week, they want to hit all the hot spots, you know. And when they're coming into town, I switched from property manager mode to personal assistant and concierge, right? So let's get tickets, let's get everything arranged for you, let's get all, everything, all the reservations made for you, and you're good to go. I will see them while they're in town, but it's on a as needed, or, hey, I got an alert. Would you like me to come in? And take care of that issue? Or they're like, yes, of course, we don't, they don't want to take care of it. And they all have different interests, right? One is, Mrs. is very into fashion. One, Mr. is very into art. I have another client who he entertains quite a bit, but there's usually a lot of space in between that. And I know well in advance when he's having, a weekend extravaganza that needs my full attention versus, oh, you're coming in just for the weekend? Beer and bourbon, that's the kind of weekend we're doing? Great. Or the Mrs., petite charcuterie boards and, little champagne and rosé for the ladies, So
And so let's touch on a little bit your first job. So I didn't, the last episode that we released was with a candidate or a lady who had worked her way up. So she basically worked in five-star hotels. She moved in as a housekeeper. She moved to a senior housekeeper. She moved to a house manager. So by the time she got to house manager, she knew the house inside out. She knew the family inside out. She was set like that. I think it must be so challenging for you, if it was your first position, to go straight in at house manager level. That must have been such a huge learning curve for you.
Well, yes and no. I loved it because I had been doing administrative direct, in an office, in a corporate setting. And every now and then I think the show is still active. I'm not sure if you're a woman of a certain age like I am, you might remember, there was a show called Beautiful Homes and Great Estates. And basically it was fabulous and wonderful. I was like, so this is lovely, but that's the realtor showing this gorgeous estate, this beautiful modern home, this beautiful historical home. But he's not the person who takes care of it, right? Because for you to come and shoot on a Tuesday, someone needs to know that we really have to do the lawn mowing on Saturday because it'll be perfect for photography in 3 days, right? Someone had to have the housekeeping go through and lay everything out. Someone had to talk you through all the intricate details and the fine finishes so that this host can talk about the property. I was like, I want that job.
Cool.
And I was lucky to be able to I took my time. I took about 2 years, due diligence, looking into the industry, talking to people who were personal assistants to high net worth individuals, estate managers, major domos. There were a couple of conferences that, you know, I took vacation from work to go to a conference to see what made sense. And to make the transition well, I know I needed that one little certification. So I went to Starkey and took their course. I was also thinking about TIBA. I was like, oh, this would be fabulous. Let's go to Belgium for 8 weeks. Let's go to Belgium for 8 weeks. Household in New York City and put out a couple $1,000s for training.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if I can handle that. And butlers in the other parts of the world versus a household manager, it's not exactly a complete exchange, right? It's not a one-off, different titles. And while I love working in a formal household, that level of formality, I was like, I'm still a New Yorker. I'm not sure if that was a great New York accent right there. I'm not sure if I want that level of working in this industry. Let's do household manager and work my way up. Now, technically, a lot of my colleagues are like, you're an estate manager. You have 4 different properties you manage. You're an estate manager. Yes, but each family sees me as a household manager, personal assistant.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I love that, because what they all say to me is that we know you have other clients, but it never feels like that to us. And that's the best compliment that I can get from any of them. Yeah,
for sure. And so obviously you've been in the sector for a long time. What is it specifically you like about working with these kind of clients? Because they can be very demanding.
Oh, extremely demanding, but I like that. I've always worked in a role where I never sat at a desk 24, for 8 hours, 10 hours a day. There was always some aspect of the job that was in the field, outside, moving around from one office location to another. I love that. And I love that in private service. No 2 days are the same. It's interesting, you mentioned someone who worked her way up. I love that. I love when people have a very organic evolution to their career in private service. I also know that because I talk to so many people across the world, major domos, estate managers, personal assistants, executive housekeepers, chefs, drivers, executive protection, everything, yacht crews. Everyone comes into it differently, right? For every individual, there is, I believe, a family or two that needs your skill set, right? Most private service staff are Jacks and Jills of all trades, or a couple, but you're really good in 2 or 3. So if if your background comes from styling, then I think you can find a great family that's involved with fashion to be involved with. If the technical, mechanical things are more your forte, then there's a family that's always building, always renovating, that needs your skill set, right? So I think it's possible and it's available. People just have to really be clear on what their skills are, really be clear on what they want in their next post, and then be ready to make that move into that next role. So I think that if that answers what.
Yeah. It's such a difficult industry, I think, to sort of move around in, because I talked about this before, but in any other sector, you just need to find a job that matches your skill set. But in this sector, that's very important. But then on top of that, there needs to be the personality fit between you and the family and the rest of the staff as well. And so you can manage houses, that's fine. But and there's nothing to be ashamed of, but there are just some families that you're not going to work well with, just wrong dynamic, different beliefs, different ideas on how they should run, different cultures and all the rest. And so, it's a bit like dating, isn't it? So you need to have that personality fit along with the sort of skill set fit as well. So it's a minefield really when you're sort of looking for your next employer. And then when recruiters are involved as well, that's another layer of complications, because you've got the middleman that needs to understand everything.
Yeah. So what I always consider as the very unique Venn diagram of my life. So yes, I am a certified household manager. I have worked for individual families for, nice chunk of time, 5 years, right? There are people who have worked for families for much longer, and
Yeah.
bless you all. That's
Mm.
and I am a consultant and trainer. So a lot of the time, even though I have, 3 solid all the time clients in New York, they're not here. And there's only so much, all the maintenance has been done, all the IT has been updated. What do I do all day? I do train and consult with families because sometimes you get someone and it's just not working out. So I like to, my clients, they are called me their angel in the outfield, where I come in and I talk to the Mr. and Mrs. because there's usually a disconnect somewhere. And then I'll talk to the staff, the housekeeper, the maybe the drivers are, not doing things well, to just find out where the disconnect is.
Yeah.
What I tell everyone is that their lives are not going to get less complicated, but at the same time, I'm just amazed at how many families are unhappy in their home because of little things that it's just there's a disconnect in what I want as the homeowner and what I want and what I need don't go hand in hand, but you have to find someone who can bridge that.
Yeah.
And give them a little bit of leeway to make that happen. That's where wanting to have service and wanting to be able to receive it comes in. So that's a great part. And then because I'm in front of candidates and homeowners all the time, I actually have worked with a resume writing service and worked with people to make sure that your skill set, your knowledge, your abilities, your service heart is really represented well on a piece of paper or a LinkedIn profile, so that a family goes, oh, Philippa, she'd be great here, right? But that, because a housekeeper is a housekeeper, yes, but a housekeeper in a 6-story Upper East Side townhouse is a little different for a housekeeper for a Connecticut, estate. It's just different. Yeah. It's just different. Being a household manager in California is vastly different than being a household manager. Not different, but the property, each property has its own unique environment that you have to work in. A 2-story penthouse apartment is different from just outside of San Francisco estate, right? Just little differences. And that when I usually point that out to people, they go, oh, right. It's all the same work, but it's just adapting to differences. And I have lots of colleagues and friends that were like, I couldn't do it in New York. And I was like, it's the best thing. Are you
We'll come back to CV writing in a minute, because that's something I definitely want to talk about, because there's lots of opinions, whether you use someone like yourself or whether you write your own CV, and we'll talk about how involved you get with that. But just to go back a little bit to the service you offer to your clients, I think that so many times I speak to clients and who desperately need someone like you, a fresh pair of eyes to come in and assess the situation and bridge the gap and open the lines of communication, which is normally the issue, and get things working effectively. But however, I think that takes a certain level of maturity from the client to accept that and bring you in, because I can imagine most clients are like, you're crap, you're fired. And they won't even think there was problems in the house. They'll just blame the individuals every single time, and they'll keep replacing the individuals, and the problems don't go because, like you say, it's the difference between the needs and the want of clients, and people think they know what they want and they don't, etc. And so I hats off to clients that can step back from the problem and reach out to a third party to come in and help solve that, because not many people would.
And, for me, it stems from the length of time that I've been in the industry. When I first started, 2007, agencies usually went into the household and did an assessment, right? So while Mrs. Smith might say, oh, it's just 4 bedrooms and we'd have somebody come in to clean on a regular basis, and, but when you actually go and go, okay, see, it's 4 bedrooms, an office, a study, all in suites, with a vast collection of, name a type of tchotchke, right? That's a different mode of cleaning. Just having someone to come in and take care of a couple of bedrooms. And I noticed you mentioned you don't have, you love to have home cooked meals, but you don't have a chef. So are you expecting to have a housekeeper also provide meals? right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of conversation that happens, that I saw happening more then than I do now in 2021, right?
Yeah.
So the great part about what I do is I have a conversation with Mrs. Smith, and I talk to her about what she wants and what she needs, and to explain that if you want 24 hours a day service, that's not one housekeeper. It just can't be, right? It could be 2 housekeepers depending on the size of the home and what actually you need, but it's probably 3 for 24 hours a day service, 7 days a week. Here's how it could work. And then you give some options as, not everyone, your lead housekeeper could work Monday through Friday, but it's probably better if somebody works a Saturday and somebody else works a Sunday. So it's their weekend, but you have continuous service. And what does that look like?
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, I could do it that way. We can do whatever you want, but let's be really clear on what that looks like and the differences of the need and the want. You need a housekeeper, right? But what exactly do you want that to be? And before I mentioned that their lives don't get less complicated, right? So when I'm working with a family, you need right now a housekeeper, but in 6 months, because you're buying another property, right? Do you need a housekeeper who can do a little more, right? And where does the household, what does the household look like in a year, right? So let's not hire someone who can do everything you need right now, 100%. Maybe let's hire someone who can do 90 to 95% of what you need now and can grow into what you actually will need in 6 months, a year, 18 months.
Yeah.
So that's one part of it. The other part that's really interesting is, so Mrs. Smith needs, let's say, a chef. And in the past, they had Abby, and Abby was great and fine and wonderful. And they had a job description for Abby the chef. They also had a Brandon and a Deborah, right? And now they're looking at a new chef, but they never changed the job description. But here's the deal. In 5 to 7 years, your lifestyle change, your dietary requirements change, your nutritional needs change. The job description for Abby, right, was fabulous and wonderful, but that role progressed. It had to. Abby came in, she put in great systems. Abby came in and she wrote up great recipes. You're not going to get someone who cooks like Abby because you're remembering the experience. Nothing will ever come back to be the memory of that experience. It's like me trying to replicate my grandfather's stovetop cornbread. Right? It'll never happen. It'll never be the same because he made it, right? And it's a 40-year-old memory. So it's gonna be right. So if you're trying to replicate a person and their role from a job description from 5 years ago, and you've never updated the job description, you're not going to be happy, right? So let's redo the job description. Let's rethink about what you actually need and where you're going, right? Because the needs of Mrs. Smith, now that she has 2 children, right, is vastly different than Mrs. Smith when she and Mr. Smith just got married, right? So your role has changed, your nutritional needs have changed, the household has changed, that job description and what you actually need in that person in the role has to be different. So getting people into the idea that it's never going to be Chef Abby. It will never be. And here's the thing, Chef Abby's not the same person either. She shouldn't be. You should have learned something. You should have taken a couple of stages somewhere. There has to have been some growth and personal, changes to, how you feed and how you source food, et cetera, et cetera. So it's, you couldn't even get Abby back now to be the Abby that you had.
Yeah, so true. It's so true as well. And so often we'll get a call from a client and they're like, my fabulous house manager, David's leaving. I need another David. Just get me the David. And it's like, and then they'll start interviewing. He's not like David. No, right. You can't have another David. There is no other David unless he has some clone somewhere. So let's look at the skills David had that worked well in your house. And let's look to replicate the skills. You don't need to have another middle-aged white man because we get it all the time. We only want Filipino housekeepers. Why is that? Well, because the last one's Filipino, she was great. Yeah, okay, so let's look at the qualities that housekeeper gave you. You don't only need Filipino housekeepers. There are lots of other housekeepers that can do the job very well. But let's talk about the skills or the traits that particular housekeeper had, nationality aside, and replicate that. And educating clients in this industry is one of the most difficult things to do. Probably slightly easier for you because they're paying you for you to educate them.
It's still difficult.
We're just annoying to them. But it's so good. Do you generally find that the houses that you go in to help to consult on this basis, do they generally not have a house manager, so therefore they need someone like yourself, or does it work if this house manager is there but still needs a little bit of external input?
Yeah, it really depends. I've had both things happen, right? Because unfortunately, for both the employer side and the employee side, people get a little comfortable, right? People get a little comfortable in their role. People get a little complacent. And at the time that myself or someone like me is brought in, they're starting to see that there could be other things going on. Now, do all employers recognize that it could be them? Not usually. And that's just the nature of things. What's interesting is what I point out to homeowners, to principal employers, that your home, your sanctuary is someone else's work location. Right? And usually that's I didn't think of it that way. Yeah, so there's certain things that kind of have to happen. It is your home, yes. You should have everything you want from it. But it's their work. When they leave here, they go home, right? So this is a work location. Let's have the equipment they need, the supplies they need, the structure they need to do it well. I've gone into homes to train housekeepers. I'm like, let's take a minute and just look at your equipment and the stuff that comes out. I'm like, this is a 5-gallon paint bucket, from forever ago. And, there's duct tape holding the handle together. I'm like, so the first thing we're going to do, like she can't clean if she doesn't have the proper equipment. And really with these floors, the imported Amazon hardwood, the granite floor, do you really want her dragging around a 5-gallon bucket of water? Can we just think about what works best, right? What new tools and a little bit of training on new tools that'd be great for not only where your house is today, but okay, the kids are 6 and 8. They're only going to get involved in more activities, cleats running around on the floors, more things going on. Let's have someone who can evolve with the family, right?
Yeah. Who
is coachable and trainable on new methods, and and actually sometimes it's the old methods.
Yeah.
Water and a simple soap and a couple of cotton and microfiber rags. Really, that's all you need. Right? Yeah. I know the floor guy said to use this, but let's kind of think about everything that has to happen in the home. Yeah.
This is all really good, I think, because I think for people to get the most out of your employees, I think you need to be ensuring that they are continually learning and developing. And so actually it's going to be really good, I think, to bring in once a year, once every then someone like yourself to come in, do a review and just make sure that things are running as efficiently as possible. And any opportunity to get somebody in to look at new methods, different methods, things like that is only going to help engage that member of staff and excite the member of staff, keep the passion there,
so they can keep up with you. Actually, I tell when I work with new families and they go, well, maybe we just start fresh. You could sweep the whole house and start fresh, all new staff. But let's not hire the staff that you need right now. Let's hire someone who can grow with you, because think about fashion. Textiles have changed that, one item can have 3 different materials in it, right?
Yeah.
Yet your housekeeper who takes care of the clothes, or blessings upon blessings, if you actually can find a great laundress.
Yeah.
There's a skill set that the industry is quickly losing. But take some time and let her or him learn about these new fabrics and what's going on. Everything doesn't have to go to the dry cleaners every time. But if she doesn't have an understanding of the fact that the latest and greatest fashion houses are putting 4 and 5 different materials into a garment, and how to best do that takes some, just like a chef, right? You want new, great different methodologies and things, but maybe when you're traveling, the chef doesn't go with you the whole time. They can do a stage someplace, right? Or they can take a CIA, Culinary Institute of America class somewhere, Or they can just take, travel to Mexico and, sit with some grandmother at the side of her, of the road and learn how she makes, the best damn tortillas in the world. That time, and the value, the cost for those things has to kind of be built in. I find that families who have companies, have built companies, they understand that, right? Because your CFO has to have qualifications.
Yeah.
Your in-house counsel has certain industry, what's the term? Continuing education that they have to do, right? And you understand that, right? The private service industry doesn't necessarily have that model, but I find that families who kind of build and own companies have a much better understanding of that once it's pointed out to them, because they go, oh, right, yeah, that makes sense. So,
and they're also used to having staff in a working environment, hiring, training, nurturing, etc. So even though it's in their home environment, they have the appreciation of stuff around them and, mutual respect. So just sort of move on then, because I'm conscious of time. So we've talked a lot about the services you offer to the clients and the benefits to the clients, and anyone listening that, needs that, they're brilliant. Because I don't know many people that offer that kind of service to clients. I think it's fantastic. You also offer a very, helpful service to candidates when it comes to career, CV writing, career coaching, interview prep, etc. So when it comes to CV writing, so can someone come to you and say, write my CV for me, or do you just help coach them when they write their own CVs?
One or the other, depends on what's needed.
Okay.
I usually try to have a conversation with someone first, 15 minutes, kind of gauge where you are, what you're doing. May even ask for your current resume, even if you've not touched it in several years, just to kind of have an idea of what you're looking for. Most people, manager level, like household manager, butlers, estate managers, chiefs of staff, if I give them some direction, can usually go ahead and do it on their own. They might then work with me on an editing basis to kind of figure it out. Though I must admit 90% of the time they go, I don't have time. I'll just pay you to do this, right? Which is fine. I do work with a couple of local recruiters, and we do conversations on Zoom webinars on how to structure your resume, the information that's really important, and how to lay it out so that it's eye-catching, and all the information that a recruiter or a hiring manager, a household manager in a family, and the employer is going to really gravitate towards, right?
Yeah.
Because Abby the chef and Brandon the chef, when I look at it, what's the difference? What really pulls it out, for me? It's the quantifiable information, right? The fact that you take care of 3 meals a day and weekend food and X number of events per quarter or year gives me a better understanding of what you're capable of, right? What you're used to dealing with. Versus, I work from a chef, but are you a chef in a household that has 3 different dietary needs and nutritional structures, and heavy entertaining? Because then I can look at it as a hiring manager or principal employer and go, okay, so Brandon and Abby both have it, but Abby really lays it out, and what she's done is really in line with how we entertain, how our household functions. I might want to talk to both of them, but Abby's looking like the number one person, right? So you want to lay it out to give as much information as possible. And then with other candidates, the last week or so, I've met with 2 candidates who spent 20 years with one employer, which is fabulous. But you've been on the other side of that desk hiring for quite some time. How do you now answer those questions when you're the candidate and not the hiring manager, right? It takes a little time to kind of decompress from working for a family for 20 years. I say anything over 3 years, you do need some time to kind of shed the aesthetic that you have taken on behalf of your employer, right? I can walk into any of my clients' spaces and know that something's out of whack only because I spend so much time there. I can also direct any one of them to a certain cabinet, shelf, and where on the shelf defines anything because I spend so much time there. Once you have that, it does take some time to let that go and be a great candidate for the next role,
Yeah.
right? Next family. But having that, having those conversations, kind of figuring out how to tell your story. When you mentioned someone who went from hospitality to housekeeper to senior housekeeper, to household manager, how do you tell that story? And it's in as much of its entirety that you can in 3 to 5 sentences with a smile on your face, because there's so much information there, right? And as the candidate, as the job seeker, I want to give you everything. But as the household manager, as the hiring manager, I just want the bits and pieces that pertain to me. And we only have a 30-minute call. So, starting to figure out what that looks like and how to tell that story. And tell a story in a way that leaves them going, oh, wait, so Sarah, tell me more. So now you can take that 3 to 5 sentences and expand it another 3 to 5 sentences, right? Because you've engaged them in your story. It takes a little time to do that. Can people do that on their own? 100%. But guidance is important. We just got finished watching the Olympics in 2020 Olympics in 2021. And let's be honest, every triathlon athlete has a running coach, a swimming coach, and a cycling coach. They have a nutrition coach. More than likely, they have somebody guiding them in how to do their finances. The great captains of industry that we all work for, they have a life coach. They have a trainer that comes to their house. Why don't we ask for guidance in something that's not quite my forte? I am a jill of a lot of trades, not all, but some things just aren't. It's not going to sink in. It's going to take too long. Why wouldn't you hire a professional who lives and breathes it all day long to help guide you through a short or long-term project? For the betterment of you, your career, and in some cases the industry. Would you not do that?
Yeah, so true. And especially Brits, because Brits are notoriously bad at selling themselves. Like, we're a negative bunch over here, and like everything's fairly grey and miserable all the time. But people are generally not confident when it comes to presenting themselves. And you have one chance, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So that CV, and it is ever so difficult to put you and your personality along with your experience on a piece of paper. And I think most people's difficulty when they've got a long career is, how do I condense it, and what do I include and what do I not include? I always think it depends on what you're applying to. And I think, and I don't know what you believe. In fact, what do you believe? Do you agree with tailoring CVs per application, per job? Or are you quite happy with an all-rounded CV that can be a blanket approach?
So there is a difference between a CV and a resume from my point of view.
Okay, right? What's that?
I am American, and most industries in the United States require a resume, 1 or 2 pages. The industry standard is about 1 page for every 10 years, right? But it really depends. And a CV in the United States is usually restricted, not always, to highly technical, scientific, law, medical, engineering. Entertainment resume is closer to a CV because you can have multiple pages. There's so much more detail that goes into it, right? For a physician's CV, we can easily do 3 pages because you're going to reference publications, you're going to reference peer reviews, you're going to reference the training, the continuing education that medical professionals, lawyers, and CPAs, certified public accountants, have to go through. That you can push it 3 pages or more. That's a CV because it's a curriculum vitae. It's your lifelong career, right? It's everything. But a resume is a snapshot of your knowledge, skills, and abilities. It is finite. It is 1 to 2 pages, and it's the things that are most important for your audience. So are you writing your resume for a recruiter, for a hiring manager, for the principal employer, for what type of job, right? Most estate managers and butlers have a wide variety of skills, but if your top skills are administration, mechanical systems, and construction, you want to highlight that, right? If your top skills are finance, collection management, and I don't know, human resources, because you worked for a family that just had lots and lots of staff, you want to highlight that. Now, are there other terms and bullet points that, you know, show the roundedness, a deeper depth of your career? Yes, but why would you not highlight those things that make you who you are, that you were the absolute best at, right? If you also have, you know, some history or experience with equestrian, you know, lifestyle, we can fit that in somewhere, maybe, if it's important. If it's important and the role you're applying for is on a ranch, or they own horses, and maybe it makes sense for you to have some understanding of the language and the reporting that's going to come across your desk, yes, then let's mention that. But if you're applying for a role in New York City, you know,
it's relevant.
It's not necessary. It's nice, exactly. You know, but it's not necessary. And that's the hardest part with people. I tell them, this is going to hurt, but we have to cull this back. We have to be surgical in our, you know, editing of 20 years of experience. Right? So. It's
also not a bad thing to hold some back, because if you hold a bit back and the principal is interested in interviewing you from what they see, then they're going to be so interested when you turn up, and there's so much more to you. You know, you're keeping some cards up your sleeves, and the last thing you want to do is turn up and disappoint. And so if you've held some stuff back, you can turn up and just layer on the extra things that you've got that they're not yet aware of. It's only going to strengthen your interview.
Fit it in, right? Knowing when to talk about the fact that you grew up on a farm in Idaho, or that you spent your formative years growing up in New Zealand. Well, maybe it makes sense, right? But it's just how to do it. Like, for example, there are two who I consider the absolute best candidates in the world to work with. One are enlisted aides. Enlisted aides in the United States, I think other countries have it as well, are the men and women who serve 3, 4, and 5-star generals across the armed forces. And they do everything. They're executive protection, they're drivers, they're the administrative, you know, powerhouse. They take care of the valet, they will cook, they will, you know, do everything necessary for that officer. But still, there's 1 or 2 things that you excel at, and let's talk about that, right? But I love them because they can fit in anywhere at any time. The other side of that is, if you've worked on a yacht, damn it, if you worked on a yacht somewhere, especially interior, you have this skill set that can almost take you anywhere, because you're literally working on a floating mansion, right? Yeah. All the same mechanicals, systems, fine finishes, care of fine finishes, wardrobe, in the salty air, moving from point A to point B in a day, right? So, you know, those are just 2 really great skill sets, I think, that can almost write their ticket, but they still need to lay it out in a way that a homeowner goes, oh, military to civilian, high-end luxury, and from the sea to actually being land-bound, and that you can do that, you know, that you can walk away from the wandering, you know, idyllic lifestyle and be somewhere. So I think that's the biggest thing for me. Helping. Do
you recommend candidates put a headshot on the top of their resume?
I think it's whatever is best for your audience. If you're working with an agency that requires it, be prepared for it, right? So I've come up in the industry where they didn't have it, but when you walked into an agency, before you left from your interview, they took a headshot, right? Yeah. And most agencies, when they get your resume, no matter how beautifully we format it, they're going to reformat it to be on Silver Swan's letterhead, right? To be on ABC agencies, you know, format and structure. So yeah, you put a lot of time and energy into it, or you pay someone to put a lot of time and energy into it, and it's going to get chopped up anyway. So the headshot is very similar for me. Be prepared to have one ready, right? Yeah. Be prepared to have a resume that has it on it and a resume that doesn't have it on it. You know, it's really easy to embed a photo and give you a copy of each. And be prepared with a conversation like this, that someone's taking a screenshot, because it's going to happen. Will they tell you it happens? Probably not. But what I usually warn people is that you know, as a recruiter, you see what, 20 people a day? Like Sometimes the only way for you to keep it together is to take a quick screenshot.
Yeah.
And say, oh yes, that was Joe. That makes sense. That was Latricia. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then ask for one, right? But more than likely, I get into a lot of conversations with people. They go, well, it's illegal for me to take a screenshot. I take screenshots all day long. What are you talking about?
Yeah, because you can. Yeah.
You'll
And
never
ultimately,
know. Yes.
no, and ultimately, I think from the photo point of view, like a presentation is important in the home, especially a more formal home, whether you like it or not. And the principal, you can tell a lot from a photo, and the principal often likes to know what you look like before you come for interview. And actually, you're saving you a lot of time, because if you turn up with bright purple hair and a nose piercing and it's an immediate no, you may as well have known it was a no 2 weeks ago and not be dragged across to New York for an interview. So, I think those people that have an issue with it are those people that are concerned that they're going to be not considered because of it. But it needs to be right from the personality, from the skills, but all of it needs to be right for the principal, whether you like it or not. So you may as well lay it all out on the table, provide the photo, and we all know where we stand. You know, we're in an industry where it's unavoidable, I think.
In an industry where it's unavoidable, and one of the few, like the last place where they can tell you, the recruiter, oh, I want a chef. And then you'll give them, 3 or 4 chefs look at it and they go, oh, but it has to be a woman. Mm-hmm. Now, in corporate America, in the federal government, in most nonprofit locations, you can't do that.
No.
But this is one of the few places where it's still, and you still get the icky feeling, like, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gender requests, at minimum age, maximum ages, certain nationalities are preferred, ethnicity. And ethnicity not so much further. Well, language is fair enough. But then a lot of it is cultural reasons, especially with the female balance, etc. You know, if you're working with a Middle Eastern family and you're working with the lady, of course, so you can go away with that. But it's one of those industries where if you're in the industry, people understand it. But if you're moving from a corporate world to the industry, oh God, well, you just can't broach it because it's just so awkward. But everyone listening, we're all in the same boat. Everybody understands. It's just the personal preference of the family, and they can pick and choose who they want. And if you don't like the reason that you're too old or whatever, and they'll just tell you, they'll give you a different reason, whatever. There'll be a reason. So you either have the honest reason from them or you have the dishonest reason from them, but you're still rejected either way.
That's why the picture part, I kind of go, because nowadays people do this, right? Yeah. So before you have a conversation with someone or introduce them to a principal client, you will have a quick online little chat with them. Yeah. So you're able to see if they have purple hair or 16 piercings on their face. Yeah,
exactly.
So it helps, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, I don't think I've ever received a photo and thought, nah. You can just get unsuitable photos. You get photos of people smoking and beers and bikinis, and it's just like, come on.
Can I give you the best tip for photos? So I've learned this from someone else. The best photos for anyone, a brick wall, for some reason, everyone, regardless of skin tone, age, wrinkles, everyone looks great against brick. Red brick paint, white, I don't know what it is about brick, everyone looks great against brick. Or evergreen, not a fake green wall, but so many places nowadays, most great hotels or even corporate buildings, at least in New York City, have a green wall somewhere. And everyone looks great against ivory or evergreens. If you have a great place outside, it's just regardless. So I always tell people, if you've worked with me, you've heard me say this: go out for brunch with your best friend. Before the mimosa, take 20 pictures, not 2 pictures, 20 pictures against some fabulous wall. Not necessarily art, nothing bright, loud, and colorful, but brick or evergreens or like a living green wall of ivory or something. 20 photos, and then go have brunch, and then send me your best of those 20, and I'll help you narrow it down to what works well for LinkedIn or your resume, or to send to Philippa for your headshot.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, look, we could literally talk for days. Do you generally typically just work with American people, candidates, or clients? Have you worked with Europeans looking for CV support?
Right. So I've worked with resume clients all over the world. Chefs sitting on a boat in the Mediterranean, housekeepers in Soho and Manhattan. It doesn't matter where you're at. For my clients as a consultant or trainer, There are several other people in the States that do this as well, and we know each other. So I mostly handle Manhattan. I'll go in other places. But I know Manhattan like the back of my hand. I know all the service suppliers here. I know most neighborhoods really intimately to tell you where to go to get things. And I understand the population of service staff here. It's a lot of immigrants. And so I understand, both the homeowner and the candidate, pools. But yeah, I have my families are, most of my clients are in California and Miami, and they're like, can you come down and do something for us for a week? I'll go to San Francisco for a week. I'll go to LA for like 3 days, but I'm a New Yorker. And so I can make it happen. I'll go to Miami for 3 weeks, so, easy, but that's because it's close to New York. It's more of a New York vibe. Other parts of the world, it's not the same.
Yeah, no, fair. But it's nice from a candidate point of view, because it's the candidates probably in this market coming out of the pandemic that are on the market looking for work, wanting a CV to stand out. And it's so good that we're all working virtually now and we're all sort of jumping on Zooms and stuff. So it's great that's available to everybody. So are people best coming to you directly through LinkedIn? Because we'll be tagging you when we release this. Is that the best way for people to get in touch with you?
The best way is LinkedIn. Yes.
Fab. Good. So what we'll do is we'll get this put out and we'll tag Latricia in all of the sort of posts, because I think the service that you offer is fantastic to both clients, to both candidates, and anyone listening who would like to talk to you about anything that we've discussed, would like your services, 100% reach out. And I think now is the time more than ever where you'd be working on yourself, your own journey, how you're presenting yourself, what jobs you're going for, where you're looking, what you're doing, etc. And we've only touched on a certain part of the job hunting process here, just sort of CV side of things, but we could go forever. We can always talk again in the future on more things. I know you do a lot of work on Clubhouse. I could come join you potentially there, because there's lots of work, lots of things to talk about when it comes to preparing for interviews, where you should be job hunting, what you should be doing, etc. So lots of sort of advice out there and lots of sort of support people like yourselves can give. So I'm going to let you get on with your day. It's my evening here, it's your morning there. So I thought you'd let you get on with your day. But I wanted to thank you very much for your time coming on and sharing your sort of skills and knowledge with us. Thank you to everybody for listening once again. I hope you all have a good couple of weeks, and I look forward to talking to you again in a fortnight. Thanks, everybody.